Okay, welcome along. Start that again, now the compressor's gone, but welcome along to another Painting Classic Cars video. We're going to do something a little bit different with this one. We said right from the start, if you go back to our sort of intro into the company, that we're not going to do step-by-step guides because there's plenty of that online anyway. But a few people have asked to see some of the metal work we do. And this presented an opportunity here. This Rover 220 Coupe is quite a rare thing. It's come in for a little bit of remedial paint work, and I've got some images I'll splice in here where there's a big crack coming along here. We've now got into the car and started trying to feather the filler away to find out where the crack starts and finishes, and it's just quite an eye-opener really. It's split all along here, and if you come down with the video you'll be able to see, you start at the back really. This is where the split in the filler work was. And you can see where the moisture sat in there and just surface rust all in here. But I mean, the thickness of the filler is quite unbelievable. Obviously, the car's had some damage across the width of the sill, or the length of the sill, sorry. And rather than dress it all out, it has just been, I mean, I'm losing my finger deep inside that filler split there. All the way along from start to finish on the sill. It's been loaded up quite masterfully with filler. It's not even fiberglass, it is just regular leveling filler. So I mean, you can see here the thickness that we're taking chunks out of. So it's a real mess. Had a good look online and there are a few reproduction sill panels available, but they are reproduction, they're not especially cheap. So taking the decision that if we buy a reproduction sill panel, we're going to end up shrinking, stretching, reforming it to fit the car. So we might as well just make it in-house. So we're going to go through with that now. There'll be people that disagree, people that agree with our methods. Everyone's got their own ways, but we're just going to walk through here and show you how we make a sill panel for a Rover 220 Coupe. So straight off, have a good tidy up, try and keep the work area clean. Not straightforward because we only have a 4-foot guillotine and a folder here, so we've got to make this in 2 pieces, which actually works in our favour because from the front of the sill up to here, about here, is 4 foot. From here to the front is parallel. From here back, it does expand ever so slightly. So doing this in 2 sections will actually make the job a little bit easier for us. But we're taking the measurements we need, we've got our measurements down. What we've also done here is to make a template of the contour at the back here. So just a bit of MDF board, placed up at the back here. We draw around the contour that we're looking for, cut it out. We've now got a profile gauge to hand at all times, including our measurements. So we can now go and start making the sill section into the seldom used metalworking area. What we're using here is 16 gauge, 1.2 mil Zintex steel. So up onto the guillotine. We know this is just shy of 4 foot, but we're doing it in sections anyway. We want a 6 1/4 inch section. Mark out on the board. Got our 2 marks on here. Wonderful bit of kit this. Saves us a huge amount of time. Back in the early days before we had such a tool, we were cutting all this out by hand either with tin snips or an angle grinder, which was a bit of a pain to say the very least. Whereas this will give us a nice clean skin machines. Nice clean cut straight away. We're good to go. Section 1 cut. Now, again, from our measurements on the board here, we know that we've got a 9/16 of a return here is the sill flange. So we'll start by folding that in. And again, thankfully, we know that with a guillotine here, if we meet the steel up onto the end of the brake here, we've got a 9/16 gap. That's going to fold us a nice tight 9/16 return. Quick and easy, just like that. Now the next section of this, if you can imagine, there's our sill panel, bottom face, and then we're going to roll up into the top section of the sill. We know that this section here is not just an angle, it's a rolled curve. So we've taken our measurements again from the car outside, and we know that we've got 4 3/4 inches from this point until the fold. So if we get the right glasses on, we know that we're there. Always keep your working area nice and clean. So those are our 2 marks. Now I'll put it in the into the folder again. I'm just going to line up my 2 marks. I'm not going to fold at this point. I'm just using this as a straight edge. So I know at this point I'm going to want to roll this. Now I also need this to be on both sides. I'll show you why in a minute. So we'll just fold that, we'll follow that marker pen over and do the same on this side. So I've got an identifying mark on either side of this steel, so I know where we're folding to do the return. Now, to say, if we go back and look at the car, I'll probably throw some footage in over the top of this, but this section here is curved. It's not just an angle, so we need to get a curve into here. So for that, what we're going to do is over to the wheel. It's not the most high-tech, fancy piece of equipment, this English wheel. It's a little bit old and not exactly top end, but we're not making huge panels day in, day out, so this does a job for us. We want quite a heavy crown on this because we just want to get a nice consistent roll straight into this top panel here. So we've got quite a heavy crown. What we do is just get the steel in between here, turn it the right way. So that's now pinched inside there. You've got to kind of view this as almost like a rolling pin with dough. You're just squeezing the steel out to change the shape and put a curve into it. Not the easiest thing in the world. Try and keep your lines straight. You're just passing it through, trying to keep on that line. And it is just, I'll just come around this way. It is just a very gentle roll we're putting into this. There's not going to be a huge amount of shape. I'm sure there'll be plenty of guys out there that are really good at this and looking at this thinking, what is the clown doing? But we all have our own ways, and this does work. As I say, we're not making big E-type rolling wings or Aston Martin rolling wings. We're just getting a bit of shape into these panels, into these repair sections. Just starts to put a curve into it. So what we can then do, we'll head over to the folder shortly, and we'll put, because it is a crisp return on there, going into a rolled edge. So we just want to try and get some shape into it straight away before we go folding it. Trying to do this quite quickly so we can condense this into a video rather than an hour's long monologue of me being quite boring for you. just about where we need to be, I think. So we're not making complex curves, we're just going to get a little bit of shape. Just ever so slight, I don't know how well that's going to show up. We've got a slight roll on there now. So when we put it into the folder and fold it, we've already got a bit of shape into this top contour now. So, I don't know, almost shows better from that way, possibly. I don't know, I can't see what you're seeing.
Yeah, just
I look forward to the edit. So if we come back over to the folder now, what we can do is we can drop the brake down, which is this part here. So if you look here, the brake is quite close up to the top here, which will give us a nice crisp fold. We don't want a crisp fold, we want quite a roll. So if we open the brake right up, on both sides there, that's going to give us a far more gradual roll rather than a crisp fold. So again, now following the fact I've got lines on both sides, I can see where we want to be. Slide that under the brake, clamp it down and give it a roll. Now the sill on this isn't a 90-degree fold, so we'll start just there. You can see we have got a bit of a roll in here, all the way through, which we can also shape once it's on the car, and we can start tacking it up and shaping it to the car. But very quickly you can see we've now got the basic shape, the basic form for the front part of the sill. What we'll do is we'll work some divots in here, which would be the natural drains that go within a sill. And then we can start making up the rear section. Then we can head to the car and start working from there as to how and where these are going to go. Right, having offered this up to the car, we've got nowhere near enough roll here. It's all way too tight. So, all trial and error. So what we're going to do is we're going to run this now through the bead roller. It's a slow mechanical wheel which compresses the steel through there to form whatever shapes you want. We've got an array of dies. There's 1,000,001 different dies available. We've got a very small selection, but they certainly do help us out. All right, let's try and run this through there. Now again, using my original fold line, because I don't want that to change. That's where the sill folds. So because it's a gradual roll there, we want to try and get the die right in the middle of that slit, right in the middle of that line, and just ease a little bit. Just running that through there, which is going to put a lot more of a roll as it compresses down through the two there. It might take a couple of passes. I might turn this around and put the guide on it. But this is a real light pressure at the minute, just to press that tight fold into more of a roll. You can probably see there we have opened that up a little bit more into a bit more of a roll. So now with the roll, we've got the roll here which meets up onto here. We're sitting a little bit proud at the minute because we're still sitting on top of everything that's underneath there. But you can see where all this has been pushed up and is totally wrong. This now continues that down in the right profile. Once we get this cut away, the whole panel will sit back in there. And that's bringing this up to this point here, where we can start a section at the back which flares out only ever so slightly. I mean, this is 4 3/4 inches. By the back there, it's out to 5 inches. So we're only talking a 1/4 inch flare out to the back of the wheel arch. But we'll get that made up now, join the two together so that it's ready to form up. Right, with the two sections made, I don't know if you can hear me through the mask here, but with the two sections made, we now TIG weld them together. By doing this, by TIG welding the two together, the weld remains soft, which means we can shape through the weld should we need to, and we can shrink it, stretch it, dolly it, and get the shape just right. Closing in formed, combination of folded up, so it's folded along this edge here, then we just TIG weld a section onto the end here to close off the back of the sill. One basic sill panel, repair section might I add. So we'll now start trimming up the body, getting rid of all the damaged and corroded sections, and start offering this up. Very loosely now, just clamped into place. I've only got 3 clamps on there, so you can see it's holding its shape pretty well. I'll just come down here. Just hold this line all the way down. Wait for that to focus, hopefully. We can now start scribing this up, cut away the old steel, cut away the old filler, and start getting this lined up and tacked into place. Okay, we're noisy now because we're a working body shop. The oven's on the go at the minute. We've got a BMW in there on epoxy bake. But the sill's now roughly cut, so time for the big reveal. See what lies beneath. Well, you can see actually if you come in here, Luke, you can see we've got this flat vertical here, and all this here is just built. That's the thickness of the filler we're looking at, where they've just filled over to get some shape back into it. And we've got a big repair section down here. No, that's a lie, it's not the repair section. That's where the rear quarter comes down. And the sill's been lapped over the top of it by the looks of it. But all kinds of weird things going on, but we'll get the sill out of the way now, clean up all this, so we're ready to start fitting the outer that we just made up. Surprisingly, the inner is in pretty good shape. We can see here where it's had obviously a cover sill of some sort, because this here, this is the old original outer sill, this body colour. It's just been roughly cut, smacked back up and out the way. So we'll unpick that, get all of that off, because the inner sill actually looks really, really good, which is a pleasant surprise. So we'll set about now cleaning all this up, get ready to mock up and get our new outer sill on there. Material now cut off and out of the way. We had a good clean up under here, which we'll cut to in a minute with another video clip. But we're getting to the end of the day now, so just offer the panel up. We've got it all clamped into position. So we can now, what we can do is follow the top line here, scribe that. So we can cut this all out in the morning, ready to get that all butt welded in. It'll be plug welded all along this seam here. The inside of the panel is already in a zinc coating, so it's got a weld-through protective zinc coating. We'll do the inner sill as well. It's moving along. Probably at this point worth pointing out, this kind of harps back as opposed to some of the other videos, but you know, spend how much on the car and so on and so forth. The car's not of huge value, and it's only come in to have the splits repaired, so this is kind of snowballed a bit for the customer. So I don't want to say this repair is a bit rough, but there are areas it could certainly be improved upon if you throw the hours at it, and obviously then the cost goes up and up and up. So at this stage, the customer had the option. We can either reapply a load of fiberglass to what we found, which we don't really want to do, but we've got to bear in mind the cost and offer the customer a good option here. We could put fiberglass back in there and get the shape right, and it would last a bit longer than the standard body filler that was in there. Or we can cut out and fabricate. Now, we found out in the process of this that the sills aren't available. What you can get are over 200 sills, which are different. That's obviously what someone's put on here before, and then got the shape and everything back with all the filler. So you don't want to be going down that avenue again. So the only real option was to make this. And this is a cost-effective repair for the customer. Straight up, transparency, this is a £400 plus VAT repair. That's to cut out the old sill, fabricate the new, stitch it in there. On top of that, there will be a bit of levelling in the paint, which is what it came in for originally. So we have priced this at £400 plus the VAT additional to what the customer has already booked in. So value for money, keeping the car on the road, and a far more proper repair than just covering it in fiberglass. So that's it, end of today, back on it tomorrow, and we'll pick up the video from there moving forward. Morning, day two, year two. Right, we've trimmed it all up. We've got it lined up. We've got these panel screws here, which behind there I've left. We've cut all this so it's going to be flush as we dress it in and along. But behind there we've left a couple of little tabs, which I'll show again in an overlaid video, which we've then joggled back so the steel sits into it, and then we can screw just to hold along this line and then clamp along the bottom. Now, we're not going to film the whole welding through this because that'll be an hour's worth of tedious video as well, but we'll just show you the first bit as we tack it in along here. For this, I am using MIG as opposed to TIG. TIG is probably preferable, but in the vein of our transparency, my TIG welding's okay. I'm not amazing at it. I can get by, and I prefer doing smaller bits. To TIG weld this whole section in will take quite a while. We can't get behind to dress much. And again, it kind of comes down to the costings. MIG welding this in, it'll go in nice, it'll go in strong. The key part here, which I'll show as we just start along here, is air. You can't just seam weld that because the panel will just fall away. It'll just be a mess. So you've got to continuously tack, continuously cool, because as you weld, the metal expands. The quicker you can cool it, the quicker it contracts back to its original shape. So the key here is just taking our time with regularly spaced tacks and cool it down. So we'll start tacking this in now. We'll just show you this little bit. We'll carry on through and show you the completed job when it's completed, obviously. So, I've already lined this up, dressed it up, so I will need that actually as well. So we'll just keep a check on it as we go, tacking, cooling, and checking on the alignment. Now that the camera's on, obviously it'll all go wrong, but here we go. Actually, a really good example straight off the back. Why do we love working on classic cars? Because it's decent thickness steel. By the sort of time that this was made, the steel is really, really thin. So it doesn't take much to get a little blow through here. So what we'll have to do there is we won't address that straight away. We'll probably a couple of more tacks along here. Then we'll come back and we'll have to fill that weld in. As I say, the steel's so thin that it doesn't take much to burn through. So thankfully, a good example there. As we've cooled it, we're still, it's nice and cold, but there's still a really nice shape there. There's no distortion. It's following a nice line. So we'll just carry on down here a little bit more, and then I'll carry on and weld the whole thing in. And again. Right, we'll just fill those holes in quick. Right, we're just going to work now this whole section in the same way, just step by step across, and we'll go back and we'll fill in all the gaps as we go across, cooling it, dressing it as we go. And what we'll do before we carry on down the rest of there, we'll just file all the spot welds back, sorry, all the tack welds back, so we can just check the shape as we go, make sure it's nice and flush, and we've got no holes that we can go back later and fill in. So I'll carry on through the rest of this, and we'll cut back soon with a completed video on the welded in sill panel. Yeah, you on? Right, so as we were saying, what we've done is bit by bit, tack and cool, working the way all the way through, planishing as we go. And it's all plug welded along the bottom. So that's it now. Solid panel all the way in, front to back, a new outer sill essentially. All butt welded, so the strength is there. We've got nice contour in there and all the way through here. So it's now going to get the lightest of skims just to level out the weld. So we'll go through our standard procedure with this, where we'll get the epoxy primer on there. We'll use the Rover for classic car elastic fibre just to go over the welds and level that out. And this will be job done. So just to reiterate, going on cost-effective, proper repair, we're at 5.5 hours on this, plus materials. So we're well within our ballpark of the 400 plus of VAT for this repair. Proper repair, light skim of filler. It's not just loaded up with filler. So that'll be good to go indefinitely now. We're not going to follow through showing the procedure of the filler work, the primer, the paint and all the rest of it. This is already a lengthy video, and we've covered the paint processes in previous and some ongoing videos. So we'll leave this here. Once we're done, I will probably edit on some finished photographs at the end so you can just see it finished, but there we go. That's one corroded, ill-fitting, incorrectly fitted sill replacement, cutout, fabrication, sill panel.